IVM.
The journeys of artists, be it comedians, creators, actors, or anyone who falls into that subset, aren't linear journeys. They're filled with varying things they try as they evolve, and various things that stay as a constant and become the foundation of their careers. So I thought I'd speak to a creator that I know of who's consistently explored newer ways to showcase his talent, including the creation of a fabulous alter ego persona, but also has made sure his foundation always remains comedy. That creator is Varun Thakur, and he's my guest this week on Advertising is Dead. I'm Varun Rugirala, the co-founder and corner chief at The Glitch. We'll be right back with Advertising is Dead.
Entertainment is like food for the brain. It's a window to culture and a great way to understand the world around us. The internet has changed what it means to be an entertainer, creating new storytellers with millions of fans. It has spawned a new breed, the story sellers, those behind the scenes creating the business for this ecosystem. They work with brands, platforms and channels who are keen to capitalize on an audience hungrier than ever for more stories. I'm Vineet Kanabar, and I have a ringside view to how stories are told and sold. On my show, I bring you creators, artists, executives and marketers for a freewheeling conversation around the business of entertainment. Tune in to Storytellers and Story Sellers for personal stories, analysis and criticism every Thursdays as I talk to the brightest minds telling or selling great stories today.
Welcome back to Advertising is Dead with Varun. Hey man, it's been,
What's up, buddy?
I don't know how long it's been.
Right before I got on here, I was telling my girlfriend that I'm about to record a podcast with Varun, and I was giving her the full history. That's when I realized, dude, I first met you actually 15 years ago.
Yeah.
15 years ago, I was a contestant on a show called MTV On the Job, and you were one of the producers
It was you versus
of that
Tanmay.
show at that point.
You and Tanmay were opposing.
Yeah. Correct. And they had won that episode.
Yeah.
So that's when I first met you. And I remember your full look, your tattoo. You had that tattoo. You had a earring, if I'm not mistaken. Those pajamas. Yeah. So it's been 15 years, man. It's great to see, people you didn't start off, you probably started way before I did, but when you were starting off, the familiar faces that you had, to see them sort of evolve and become who they are right now in their own fields is quite crazy.
And incidentally, the first ever shoot Glitch did,
Yeah.
you were in it.
Yes, I was, and I was a Sardar.
Yes.
I was a fan.
You were a superhero.
What was his name? Yeah, what was his name?
I forgot what your name was.
Because I had a clip of it for very long, and then something happy, some sing obviously, but
I remember it was a Bindas, and and at that time you were one of the VJs at Bindas, and there were four of y'all.
Correct.
And each of y'all were converted into one superhero.
Yes.
I still don't remember what you were. I remember the Sardar part. I don't remember anything else from that.
I was a Sardar with a fat paunch. And it's weird because when you put a pagdi on me, I don't get facial hair. This is like a month of not shaving. Okay. So it looks so funny because I'm full clean shaven and I'm a Sardar. That actually was about 12 odd years ago.
Yeah, it was 2009 December or the first ever shoot we did.
Yeah.
Incidentally, in that shoot, we had bought this Nerf gun, which I think one of you all used.
Correct.
And that Nerf gun still, I think, goes for every single shoot of us. It became.
Are you serious? Wow.
It became a thing that we had bought it for fun. Basically, that prop was not required.
Right.
Budget mein tha. Rohit and I said, we want a Nerf gun to play with to shoot each other.
Correct.
We bought that as part of the prop. For some reason, it kept going back with the peti for every single shoot after that. So that gun still survives in 10 years.
It's insane that you have it even after 10 odd years, dude.
Yeah.
Crazy.
But what I find interesting is if I think about then and I think about now, you have done almost every angle of what a creator can do. No, you've done hosting. You've been a creator in multiple angles. You have acted. There's obviously been the comedy part of it. There is also a podcast.
Correct.
What is left?
I have to direct my own film. So that's the only thing. It's funny you brought that up because I had a conversation with somebody the other day where I remember when I was younger and I've already done stand-up about it, but I think it's important to give context. Okay, till I was in the 8th standard, I wanted to be a cricketer. Proper. My dad used to play cricket, not for city or country, but he was in his college or whatever. I started playing, and so was my brother. And I was serious. I said, cricketer hi banna hai, till 8th standard. And it was, funnily enough, after cricket practice, that my parents took me to watch Kaho Na Pyar Hai. Okay, I came back home and I wanted to be an actor. I'm not kidding. And from a very young age, because of Hrithik, bro, I fell in love with the guy. I'm not kidding. Like, I fell in love with the dude. I'm like, dude, I want to act. I was doing Iqbal Ka Jeena in front of the mirror. Okay, after I came back. It was that corny. So, in my head, a long time back, I had pretty much decided that I want to act. Whether it's theater, is it web series, it's that time there was no web series as an idea also, but film, whatever it may be, I love being in front of the camera. I'm what you would call an attention, right? So from a very young age, I've loved being on stage. So acting was something I definitely always wanted to do. But acting is also the kind of profession you can't go about telling when you're young, "Mera actor banna hai," because the straight up impression is you're dumb. You don't want to study, you know.
इसको कुछ करना नहीं है life में.
इसको कुछ नहीं, इसको सिर्फ acting करना है because people think acting is so easy, right? Like because Naseeruddin Shah just became an actor, right?
So I think also the concept of studying acting is not there. I think now
at all. Correct. And at that time it was nothing. And plus your kids. So you know if another kid finds out, they'll rip you to shreds, right? Just for saying it. So I never said that to anybody. I continued. And another turning point came was BMM. You remember when that course got introduced, Bachelor in Mass Media, right? So I said, I want to do that. I want to try advertising because I think I'm creative.
Again, I think I am creative is a terrible sentence to make because that also shows, and this is what it used to be held against every person.
Correct.
Whoever said, I think I'm creative, इससे science नहीं हो पा रहा है, commerce नहीं कर सकता, तो ये creative बोल के कुछ करना चाहता है.
Parents especially creative. My dad used to do creative with his hand action. You just want to do something creative. I'm like, what is this? So for the longest time, it was okay. What do I try and do? Commerce wasn't working out. And BMM sort of really changed my perspective is because not only did I find out things about myself that, oh, you have to create a campaign. I was able to come up with a campaign idea. Oh, the slogan has to be funny. I was able to do that. So as floozy as a lot of people think that the course may be, if that is something you're inclined towards, you'll make the best of it. Like Harshil, for example, Karya was my batchmate. Now you see what he has done with all the companies that he has done. And that's because he absolutely loved what was being taught and he was able to use it. I was able to use the sort of come up with campaign, slogan, copywriting side of it. So I said, okay, now I want to do advertising. Still not telling anybody I want to act. Because I'm like, I need to have some source of income.
You know, it's terrible that it's almost a point of shame. Like, you know, you are so worried of being shamed. Like, you'll say, like, for the longest time, I think I haven't admitted it till now. I always wanted to be in front of the camera. I snuck myself into being behind the camera because I couldn't say it.
That's the thing. And it happened for a long time because it exists. That stigma sort of exists. Because it's not like my dad's an actor, my mom's an actor. So, oh, by default, you're going to be one. It was none of that. So, advertising happened. And then suddenly Khujli came, hey, I want to actually go abroad and study filmmaking. Because I've always been a lover of cinema. I love watching it. I'll watch the most random movies and some random foreign language movie. And I'll watch your regular shit as well, right? So I went abroad to study filmmaking. Now by this point, I've done advertising. I want to be an actor. I did a bunch of theater. I was dancing. And I've also studied filmmaking, direction and cinematography. So then it was like, okay, I got to pick and choose something. And I came back and coincidentally, Bindas was looking for VJs at that point. And I'm like, education loan is a so whatever you get your hands on, take it because you got to start paying. That's how Bindas happened. So then it was like, okay, everything is slowly working out little by little. Just try your hand at everything. Because when it comes to media, you can write, you can act, you can produce, you can do stand-up, you can do advertising, you can do film. There's so many different avenues. I'm like, I'll try my hand at everything because something's got to stick. And then finally it came to a point when I admitted that, okay, abhi meko acting mein genuinely try karna hai. Because now I have some on-camera experience to sort of go with. And my best friend's older brother calls me one day and he's like, bro, we've written a script and we're going to make it independent film hai, and we really want you to test for it. I said, cool. I went and I tested for it. The film was called Question Mark. Okay, and it wasn't like QUESTION. It was just a symbol of a question mark.
Okay.
It was India's first found footage genre film.
Oh.
Yeah. So we shot for it in 15 days. Average age on the film was 25. We came back, they managed to produce it. We managed to release it. Nobody watched it because nobody knew what the fucking title was, right? Because you stop at a signal, you look at the hoarding, and there is just a symbol of a question mark.
Yeah.
And it said 17 November, whatever the date was. So people just look at it and drive ahead because they're like, what is this?
Yeah.
And that sort of led to the film not getting recognized. Like if you had to watch it now, yeah, it seems a little dated, but back then it was definitely a one-time watch. And the day I left to shoot for that film, I won the open mic that Veer Das used to do. So that's how comedy started. And then I was like, okay, you know what? I got to select 2 things at least that I want to focus on primarily.
Yeah.
And that ended up being comedy and acting. Comedy in all its forms and acting in whatever form. And 31st October 2010, I won the open mic. 1st November, I left to shoot for Question Mark. So that was pretty much like the start of, okay, now I know exactly what I want to do.
You know, what's also interesting about what you say is that you spoke about hosting and then you spoke about comedy and acting. But I don't think hosting gets its due about what all it teaches you, right? And every person I've met who hosts, and I know that that's something which you continue to do in spurts over time. And I've always felt that people look at a host and say, it's a host, right? And especially if you're on television. So I feel that people on stage get a lot more credit as hosts than they do get, because I don't know why that is, because I remember at least in the VJ era of let's say, if you talk about Chinnappa and that entire bunch, till let's say even the Jose and everybody else, when that thing kind of became about, I think a lot more about reality TV than it became about hosting is when it lost. But there is, I mean, I love to hear what have you taken from that one thing that, I mean, I would say multiple things, but of hosting per se, right? What all have you kind of gotten from that?
So actually hit the nail on the head when you took those names, right? Say back in the day, like Gaurav, Juhi, UD, or Cyrus, Saukar and Rocha Both, Shehnaz, you know, these were the people you sort of watched or I watched growing up.
Yeah.
Right? Like I was a few years younger than them, but they were already doing those things. So our first impression of, hey, what's cool, how to do it was all them. So subconsciously, you are modeling yourself to pick the best of what all of these guys did, and obviously include your own charm, your own voice, right?
Yeah.
So I would definitely say that the first few times it was, hey, I'm trying to be someone else, trying to talk like someone else, or you get the host voice going. And it works sometimes, but sometimes it really just falls flat because you're trying to be somebody you're not. And what I realized with those guys was they were just being themselves, right? And I think that's the biggest takeaway, where once you start being comfortable with who you are, whether you're on stage, whether you're in front of the camera, whether you're hosting a TV show or whatever, you'll be able to hold your own because you're confident in who you are. I think that that was my first and most important learning from it, because you try and be somebody else, right? Hey, that's how they talk. You got to move your head like that. You look like an idiot, right? So don't try and do that. Just be you. If just sitting back and being laid back is you, be you. So that was really good. And I think once we did all of that, most other things become like it sort of preps you for the other stuff. Like all my VJing time in Bindas, when we're in the middle of the street hosting, it just got me so comfortable being in front of camera, being in front of people, that because in India you take a camera out and people are like, kya hai, kya hai, kya hai? So it doesn't matter.
I get over how we're so fascinated with it even now.
We love it. We love it. And the thing is, I understand if it's a Salman, it's a Shah Rukh or Amir or one of the big guys. I'm shooting with a chota camera and people make a
this is where I have to tell you what happens, right? Because when you work in a crew, you've heard this enough. When they see a camera, right, the expectation is, what if some big actor is going to come?
Correct.
They've just started someone I don't know. So in most times, they're like, what you will hear standing in the background is, kiska picture hai?
Kiska picture hai?
Right. So it's the sort, okay, maybe I will spot someone.
Yeah.
And half the time they don't know who that is, but they still wait and see. You never know. Like, I might see this face somewhere.
Yeah. But I used to actually lie to people. Well, if they're walking by, they're like, kiska shoot hai? Shah Rukh Khan. They would just stand there. Shah Rukh Khan aane wala hai. But now that you mentioned this, a funny thing, a thought that came out. So in my entire wide spectrum of acting career, which includes 3 independent movies and 1 Jab Tak Hai Jaan, right? Now, the good part about that movie is that it gave me 10 minutes of content and about 10 years of talking points. Okay, because now that I've done it, I don't waste a chance to include one story from it. So, about bystanders who are obsessed with cameras. We were shooting in Kashmir for Jab Tak Hai Jaan. Okay, now I had a very small role in the film. Now it was Shah Rukh and Anushka's scene, so we were all standing by, and they had some people who would come in to sort of watch the shooting. So a bunch of people were around me, and they have no idea who I am.
Yeah.
Okay, so they're like, "Arey, kiska shooting chal raha hai?" So I said, I couldn't say mera. I'm like, Shah Rukh ka shooting chal raha hai. Acha, and I'm in army clothes. So, dude, this guy started chatting with me like I'm some random time pass dude, and then they called me to come and act with Shah Rukh. Because I was obviously doing those things, right? So after a point when people started saying that this guy is there, we've seen him in scenes with Shah Rukh. Now when the scene cuts, Shah Rukh goes back to the van. He's not going to meet 1,000 people. Correct. So they're like, okay, you know what? This guy.
The guy with Shah Rukh. I couldn't meet Shah Rukh, but I met the guy with Shah Rukh.
With Shah Rukh. And literally I wasn't doing anything in that scene. I could just be an extra pretty much. But then they started coming, taking pictures with me. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to enjoy the glory.
Exactly.
That isn't mine. Why the fuck not? So there is about 150 Kashmiris with a picture of me with them. Yeah. And I don't think they still know my name.
But I must tell you, of all the pieces that you've done, and I'll come to comedy, your original on Amazon is by far my favorite thing I have
Thank you.
all time. Like I remember I binged that show for so many reasons. Also because you got Chandal.
Yeah, of course.
Right.
Of course.
Tell me about how that happened.
So, you're talking about Shaitan Haveli, right? Because you said special, so I thought you were saying...
Sorry, I meant Shaitan Haveli, sorry.
Shaitan Haveli. So, I was about 13 when my obsession with pretty much like B-grade horror movies started. Because there used to be channels like CVO, I don't know if you remember. And they would show these films at night. And I'm like, these are hilarious, I'm going to watch them. Yeah. So, I would watch and it came to a point, became an obsession. I'm watching all of these movies, like Chudel ki blah blah and like Shaitan ka blue, whatever shit like that. Yeah. And the more I watched it, the more I started enjoying it. And then there was Ramsey. Those were the Ramsey brothers.
Yeah, the Ramsey movies are
legendary.
You would never get scared. But you just like, it's so hilarious.
It's hilarious. And if you watched any other like foreign slasher movies, right? You already know the tropes.
Yeah.
And it's funny to see these guys copy it. But then there came a phase where there were copycats of the Ramsey. So if a feature film
gets low bar.
Dude,
that's a very low bar.
And I was like, this is my favorite because these are random dudes who have watched Ramsey movies and they're like, hey, I'm going to make the same thing in 1/3 the budget.
Yeah.
Okay, I won't be surprised if the budget was like 10 grand. Or whatever, like only for the camera, rest everybody's free. Dude, it was... If you haven't watched, you have to watch. Khuni Dracula was literally my inspiration. Khuni Dracula is the movie. And I watched it. I said, bro, iska kuch karna chahiye. So I started thinking film in my head.
Yeah.
So that's how it started at about 16. Then during BMM, I was going to use it in a project.
Okay.
Didn't pan out.
You had this idea that long?
Since I was 16 years old. 15, 16. I don't know. Sometimes I say 15, sometimes 16, but I think it was 16. And it wasn't, the idea I had was, I like this and I want to make it into a movie. That was it.
Yeah.
In BMM, I started developing it. By the time I did film school in the UK, I was actually trying to sort of make this as a thesis, comparing this to Hammer films from the UK, which are the guys who are known to do what Ramses did. Ramses basically copied from them.
Yeah.
So all of this happened. So I'd done so much research and I'm like, dude, this would be great if there is a contemporary guy who's trying to make a movie from back in the day because that's the only cinema he knows.
Correct.
So he starts making it and Bhoot comes to life and now he's like, bro, I'm going to still continue shooting it because can you imagine who can make a horror movie with real ghosts?
Yeah.
So this is...
So you got the actors for free.
Yeah. So exactly. Why the not? So this was the idea in the head. Many years passed by. It was just in one of the Word docs on my laptop. Then I think Amazon had just come to India at that point, and they were talking to OML about looking for exclusive deals, so pre-written shows that they could take. So a bunch of us were pitching. They were looking for series at that point, and I had this idea for a film. So I said, why not make it into a 8-part series instead? So I started converting it into the series format, pitched it to Amazon. They liked it. Then Kautuk Srivastav and Chirag Marvel also.
Yeah.
So Chirag and Karan Agarwal came as a consultant. So 4 of us sat on it, and we just jammed it out in about 15 odd days. Just literally sitting 8-10 hours a day, and just throwing ideas. And it was such an amazing process because here are 3 guys. So Chirag, Kautuk and I, we all love that genre.
Yeah.
So for us to watch those movies and come up with our own things was very organic. Like it didn't feel like we were working.
Yeah.
And then Kautuk and Chirag would go out, write the screenplay dialogues, and boom, I think we shot the movie in 23 days. Shot the show, in 23 days.
Yeah.
We were shooting an average of 9.5 minutes a day.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah, 9.5. So there were times when it's like, acha bro,
just for context, for anybody who doesn't know that, you normally would shoot like a couple of minutes a day, like 2 to 3 minutes a day, right?
Yeah.
Max like 4.
And even like the Saas Bahu shows do 7 minutes. Yeah. But it's like dhadan, like.
Yeah. That 7 minutes is an episode.
Correct.
Then the dhadan makes it 22 minutes.
22 minutes. That's not true. But unfortunately, we couldn't do that. So we're like, bro, kya kare? So the question would be, do you want the 2 shot or do you want coverage of that shot?
Yeah.
We're like, no, bro, I want the shot. We don't have time for coverage. So literally make the 2 actors sit, shoot the 2 shot and move on. So the reason for me that I say that comedy became the driving force was as an actor, you can only do so much. But when you have something else that you bring to the table, it helps separate you from the pack. And that's what comedy did for me. Because the day I'd have a good comedy show, I'd have a great audition and vice versa.
Yeah.
What also comedy did was it gave you a better platform. It gave you a chance to showcase your skill without anyone asking you to. Right? It's like your audition before your audition because they've seen you perform. They know you're confident on stage. You can hold your own. A lot of my comedy involves me acting. There's a lot of expressions happening, me playing characters.
True.
So that sort of gives you that little jump and a push because you can do a lot more.
Yeah.
So that really helped me, man.
What you're saying is true, right? Because I remember that point in time, I used to be a producer, an associate, something in that. And whenever we want to go cast someone, even though I would go to watch stand-up because, especially Amazon nights for fun, I knew for a fact this person could be great for this person could be great for that.
Right.
And I don't think till for a while people realize it's a great platform to kind of showcase yourself as talent.
Absolutely.
Even if it didn't even if it wasn't why you were doing it, it kind of put you out there as saying, okay, this person's comfortable on stage, good in front of a crowd, can perform, can kind of also like has a following. That whole digital following thing was happening, and you add all of those things up, it then made you someone. I would say for someone casting, I would look at you more for casting than I would with someone who's just standing in. Like we were discussing, those people standing in the queue, waiting to get their turn.
Absolutely, 100%. And it actually helped me because I saw the change. I saw the change in the casting calls that started happening. Yeah. It became more about, okay, hey, listen, we'd like to test you. When can you come in? So from just standing outside for 6 hours, over a few years, it became I would be given a time.
Yeah.
So I go in at 1 o'clock and I leave at 1:30. So and all of those changes happen because of comedy, man. In fact, if you see the US, so many actors were comedians when they started.
Yeah.
Jamie Foxx, Adam Sandler, like Robin Williams, you name it. Yeah. Steve Martin, Steve Carell, like all of these guys started off as stand-up and then eventually ended up writing their own films and shows, acting in a lot of them, and finally producing as well. So I think that in my head was also one of the things where that this can happen. Yeah. Because you have the added advantage of knowing comedy a little more than somebody who doesn't, you're able to bring a lot more to the table.
Would you say that comedy is and the platform you kind of have been able to build your entire career on, no matter what?
Absolutely. No questions about that. Is because if you see my last acting job was Shaitan Haveli. No, it was, I did a show for Netflix. It will come out now.
Yeah.
So that was my last acting job, but that also came after 2 years of no acting job. So, but comedy and its variations, like I would put the podcast as an extension to a different form of comedy, although it's not necessarily just comedy.
Yeah.
Or like a wiki. I know we'll get to that. So
that was going to be my next thing to get to.
That's literally another branch of me that's helped say the brand and the self-marketing side of things.
Yeah.
So comedy hands down has been pretty much what has kept it all together for me.
So getting to Wiki, when I was mentioning to someone that I'm going to be chatting with you on the podcast, are you going to chat with Varun or are you going to chat with Wiki?
Yeah.
I said, I think Wiki will show up somewhere in between.
Yeah.
How did Wiki happen?
So Wiki basically happened because one of my managers, say 4 years ago, this was 2016, and I was literally, so I had hit a slump, I felt, creatively in my head, because I was doing Vine that kept me going, and then they shut Vine.
Yeah.
And just when I started doing well and enjoying Vine and putting stuff out, they shut it. Then it became annoying to shoot it, edit it, because Vine was everything in-app.
Yeah.
Like, what do I do? And then Ria, my then manager, said, listen, I think you should try characters because a lot of people are doing that nowadays. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't hurt for you to do it. And you can do impressions and stuff, so why don't you? I'm like, okay, cool, why don't I? And I've realized that for any sort of comedy that I'm doing, my first place I go to is within me. So my experiences, my thought, my circle, because I know it so well that I'll be able to speak about it the best way possible.
Yeah.
Instead of imagining or taking somebody else's, right? So I started looking, I'm like, okay, what can I do comedy on? And I'm like, if there's one thing I know, it's struggling actors. My first breakout stand-up clip was about struggling actors.
Yeah.
I'm like, because I've gone for so many auditions, I've been those guys. I've been there chatting with these bicep, tight-fitting dudes, and we've had conversations where in my head I'm just writing mental notes that, I'm going to use this in a stand-up bit somewhere. So I'm like, why don't I take this struggling actor thing and somehow try and do it, but show the other side of a struggling actor who is not really struggling. He is literally one of those rich boys from the north who come here, who are living in a 4 BHK, who are driving a BMW, going for the same audition you are. And when you take a rake and leave, you realize that you are the one struggling. They are not struggling.
And they're also the ones who spend 5 hours in a gym.
Yeah.
For no reason.
Yeah. They go to the gym after they've gone to the gym. So they go to the gym, they come out and then they go to the gym again. So I was like, why not take personal experiences, those guys, and then make a character that is... So I started doing the character with my face and sunglasses. I'm like, let's try. But it wasn't hitting because you could still see it's me.
Yeah.
I'm like, I have to change this. So I found Snapchat. Snapchat has face swap. And I literally went on Google and I typed Punjabi male model. And Google Images threw up a whole bunch of pictures. I saved about 50 of them. And I kept trying to, on Snapchat, see which of them fits. This guy was number 32. He fit. Fit so well that I couldn't believe it. Because there are times when you'll watch the Wiki video and if I've shot it with the right angle and the right light, it doesn't look like I'm wearing somebody else's face.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, obviously, when you come closer, you'll make out, but...
Has this person ever realized that you've used his face?
No. So, he hasn't, but some people who know him have realized. So, I don't reveal the name of the said person.
You don't have to.
Right. So, I didn't have a clue. I thought it was some regular Punjabi guy, right? From the north, jiska photo liya. And about a year or so of doing it, on Snapchat, I'm getting a lot of hate. And these people who are his fans or whatever have started hating on me. How are you using his face, this, that? And I had no idea who this person is. And I went and Googled said person.
Yeah.
And this person is known.
Oh.
Yeah. He is known. And I'm looking, I'm like, wow, really? It's this dude? And there's one picture of his that I use for Wiki, which fits perfectly. And I've just been using that ever since. I don't think he knows.
Yeah.
But I know who he is. So one day I may reveal to him.
But what is great about the character is anybody who's ever seen, and you see so many of these guys, right? what you mentioned, the gym, the car, the large apartment, having help at home all the time.
Yeah.
And dude, Papa और पैसे भेज दो ना.
Spoiled and chauvinistic. Like, and they have like, they are so MCP in the way they are that it's even for a dude to listen to those things, you'd be like, dude, come on, you don't need to say that.
Yeah.
So what people may think of as, I don't know, a hack to get laughs. A lot of people who've messaged me, a lot of people who like the character are actually women, right? Because they've met this guy.
Yeah.
They have met this guy in their gym, in their college, at their workplace, in a club, on the street, through a friend. But you've met this person where he is in your face chauvinist. He is spoiled and he thinks he's the center of the universe.
Yeah.
Right. So if he doesn't get a film, it's not his loss, it's the director's loss.
Yeah.
Although he has no films to speak of, right? Yeah. And I don't know, when I did it for the first time, I sent it to a bunch of my close people whose feedback I value. So it was a 50-50. Some said, theek hai. Some said it's great. But what happened after that was insane, because it was like, one day I put a video, I followed it up the next day. By the time the 4th, 5th video hit, I'm getting messages. And I hadn't gotten that sort of attention for a while.
Yeah.
So suddenly when you start getting it, you know the difference. Where I know 80 people have messaged me today as opposed to 5 who do normally.
Yeah.
And character just blew up. It just blew up. To a point where one day I'm getting frantic calls from my friend. Hey bro, wake up, yaar. Why are you sleeping? It's 12 o'clock. Ranveer Singh is doing Vicky, bro. And in my head, I'm like, Ranveer Singh is going to copy Vicky. What the I've gone to check, because I thought in my head, in my sleep, I'm like, Ranveer has seen the character and he's going to copy the character in some ad. So I'm angry when I go up. But the guy actually gave me a shout out. He gave me and Malika Dua at that point, because her makeup Didi was doing really well.
Yeah.
He was giving us a shout out. And once that happens, right? Because in India, if Bollywood gives you, or people from
Bollywood, the Bollywood stamp of approval,
then everybody's like, oh, now I find it even funnier.
Yeah.
So, I mean, good thanks to all of those guys who've given whatever shout out, because then I'm like, dude, the thought in your head is, how do you make something popular, right? And the straight up thing is, come up with something you like, you want to do, find your voice, and then be regular.
Yeah.
Dude, I was so regular. I was putting a wiki first 1 week, almost once a day. Then it became once every 2 days. But I was fucking regular.
Yeah.
By the time 6 months happened, I'd made 40 odd videos.
Yeah.
And I'd seen that jump. So yeah, man. And once that happened, there was more attention towards Vicky. The character started doing well. Because Vicky had become popular, if I announced a stand-up show, it was getting sold out.
Yeah.
And that sort of jump in reach I hadn't seen. That came after Vicky. To a point when people were literally like, you, I want Vicky.
Yeah.
Arey yaar, tu nahi Vicky. And it sort of like, you created a monster where after a point, people are calling me Vicky. Yeah. People want to see only Vicky. So I'm like, let me milk the character till how much ever I can, which is why the Amazon special was also half me and half Vicky.
Yeah.
And people have come out saying, bro, wow, yaar, Vicky killed it. And I'm like, dude, what about me? 7 saal se comedy kar raha hai.
But that's the tough part, right? How do you kind of like, at some point, and this is what, and you make a good point, right? It's about saying, you've found one piece which you can expand for a while to get that spike.
Yeah.
But at which point do you say, okay, I need to tone this down to balance everything else that I want to do, so that this character doesn't consume me and everything I've done.
Yeah.
How do you find that point, and how do you go ahead from there?
Dude, so for me, what I decided is that after that initial spike and this of doing it, right? I don't want to be somebody who's doing the same character regularly, twice a day, non-stop, even though it may get the views or whatever. Is because after a point, people get tired. I got tired. Because I'm like, okay, now how
you can't come up with stuff that often.
Yeah, like, and I'm just creating shit from nothing. So you have to either make it topical or this or that. But what I thought worked really well for Vicky is, if I had to have this entire podcast recording as Vicky, I would be able to do it. And by that, I don't mean just the voice modulation and like talking like himself. Like, I would tell you everything about his life, his family, his history, his first GF, his most embarrassing moment or whatever.
Yeah.
I can tell you everything because it is so clear, like another person who's complete opposite of who I am.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not a chauvinist as far as I know. So he's a complete opposite, but I can tell you everything you want to know about this person, even though none of it ever happened.
It's like an alter ego.
Yeah, proper alter ego, dude. Proper alter ego, but not something I will only do time pass. But I think then it became a point where I said, I'm going to space it out. Then I reduced it. I didn't do it for 2 months. I would get messages, where is Vicky, this, that. Then just put one. Then not do it for 3 months. Then do it. Then you start valuing it, because then you're putting it out only when you know that this is a good one.
Yeah.
Because everybody, no matter how good he or she may be, when you're doing something, you reach a lull. It's bound to happen. You hit a slow patch. It becomes repetitive sometimes. It becomes boring. It becomes like, you're doing it just because you can say like something funny like this and it flies.
Yeah.
So I didn't want that to happen, which is why it's 2020 August. I started that character first was 6th June 2016. 4 years of one character.
Yeah.
And touchwood, I sometimes feel it's run its course, but when I put a video out, the kind of response I get, I'm like, oh, it's there. There's something more, because now this is a person.
Yeah.
This is not a character I'm doing. I can literally start a parallel Instagram account called Vicky Malhotra and lead a separate life.
Yeah.
So I think that has helped in not just numbers, but also in your own head to be a character, to be able to perform it, even though it's the same character. I think it sort of trains your brain a little bit and your own ability.
You also make a good point about one thing, right? Is that most times you kind of feel like, okay, I need to keep doing more and more of this. It's like I felt that while doing the podcast, right? Someone actually said, okay, you should do more. I started a second podcast, is doing that. I keep putting that on pause, and at some point your mind gets exhausted. You feel like you're doing the same thing again and again, and you say, okay, what is the worst? You will not put some content out for a couple of weeks. Nothing's going to happen.
Right.
And I realize, and the question then is, okay, will you lose something? So you always get that.
Yeah.
I think I'm in a very early stage curve of what you've kind of been through, where for me it's like, oh, if I don't put something out this week, what if I lose traction? But then I'm like, it's fine. As long as I put the main thing
But
out.
you will. For me, dude, there's been a slump in the middle where if you don't, it's basic algorithm. It's a science. If you are a regular content uploader, it doesn't have to be once every day. Even if you do thrice a week, but you're regular with that. And obviously your content needs to have its own voice, connect with your people, but you will see a steep rise.
Yeah.
I have seen a steep fall as well. When I say steep fall, means less growth. So it's not necessarily a fall, but the growth hasn't been great in terms of pure numbers.
Yeah.
Right? Because I'm not putting a content out. I'm randomly putting one link of the podcast, or hey guys, thanks XYZ brand for sending me a free shoe. Yeah. But there was no content going up. People start unfollowing you.
Yeah.
So for me, the shift was where I'm like, okay, I obviously want to have good numbers and interaction and engagement, but there also comes a point where you're like, okay, there is other stuff that I need to do. That is my focus. Now, I spent the entire lockdown writing a new show, which I sat on for a year and a half, but I wasn't able to do. Yeah. Now, no option. Sit your ass down and get a Bible out, get a pilot written. So managed to do that. So then that trade-off is fine. Okay, I didn't gain many followers, but hey, I have gotten X amount of work done, because I think it's also personality type, right? A lot of people they're very like phone, and they'll do all the updates and your stories and this and that and have Q&As. I'm not like that. I mean, I'm a very social person. I love chatting. I love doing all of that, but this constant social media upload, right?
Yeah.
Just after a point, I'm like, I can't do it. I can't do it. Because you're just like on your phone. You think of the idea, then you shoot the idea, then you edit the idea, then you upload the idea, then people comment, so you reply to their comment, then you share it on your Instagram. Hey, you have to share it on Twitter. And you're like, 1 second, bro. I need to sit down. It gets too like jumbly. So you have to find that fine balance, I think.
Yeah. I think what you say makes a lot of sense, right? Because we all get so like overwhelmed, and this whole, that cycle you just spoke of, where you will think of an idea, you'll make it, and you go in that infinite loop, and then one day you just get exhausted because your brain doesn't work, and then you feel the almost in your head, you're like, oh shit, I haven't come up with anything today. What if I don't put anything out there? And so and that's a very bad place to be, because because that is the dark side of social media. That is where if you go, then like why did this not get likes? Why did this not get enough comments?
Yeah,
and
that's bound to happen, man. It's bound to happen whether you're a creator or you're just a regular person, right? Because that's the allure of social media, where you put something and it gets liked, your mood is changed. You're like, my new wiki video got 500 comments, and at the same time, if I put a video and it's not done well, it starts again like, oh shit, it's not done well. Maybe the character's not working. Maybe I'm not funny enough. Dude, have I lost my this? Oh shit, now nobody's engaging. I've lost audience, and then you go into that other spiral. So I think just having the right balance, where if you're not doing something, you're balancing it out with doing something else that is going to eventually help your career. In any form. So
what's your general process like when you are working on, let's say, either a stand-up piece or you writing a show together? What's your general process like? So
when it comes to stand-up, I've literally never written a set down physically. So there's no Word doc that has opened and then in that I've written it down. I know it might be a good practice to do it, but I'll sort of write it in shorthand almost. But the way I do it is I'll think of whatever's happened. So it's usually my first go-to is any funny story that has happened in and around me. That's my first thing, because I love anecdotal comedy. I love getting the audience describing something, being a mom, being the dad, being the thing in the middle, acting it out. So you will not necessarily find like great setup and punchline in my set. There's some comics who just do it amazingly, right? But for me, you have to watch the whole piece to sometimes find it funny. Not to say there are no punchlines, but that's not a driving force, right? So I would do that first. Once that happens, I'll just make a note in my notes in like a couple of lines, what it is, start saying it to myself in my head. Then catch bakras. So girlfriend, brother, friend, this friend, mom, dad. So I try to do both. I say in front of my parents and people my age to see who's laughing what. And when I see that initial chuckle, right, I'm like, okay, cool. I have something here and I have to just make it happen. And then it literally becomes me telling these people. So I practice it by saying it. And then in a short, I'll just paraphrase that whole set and I'll have it in my head, because thanks to SSC school medium, my ratta capacity is amazing, because we've by-hearted 21 questions and digest and whatever else used to happen and vomited in the paper. So it became really good muscle memory, where I would just remember it. And even if I forget, it'll come back in another show. So it just became that, where I keep my eyes and ears open. Something funny happens, I make a note down. So invariably, I have people around me saying, "Hey, bro, ispe set mat banao. Hey, bro, ispe set mat bana," because they know I am going to take something from what happened. So that's pretty much it for me.
And in terms of when you put it on a show,
so so stand up, then typically you would go and do an open mic. So what we would do is, pre-COVID, I would just say, guys, new material night. So whoever really wants to watch me, I don't. Sadly, I've written about 10 minutes, but it's all on Corona. And I don't think anybody wants to listen to another Corona joke now, because they're like, bus, they want to be done with it. But I've not written much stand-up, to be honest, during the lockdown. But so we would do a new material night, run it out once so you know how it flows, and then just go and keep performing. And then each show you do becomes a rehearsal. Pretty much, to have that best set. And then if you're shooting it for a platform, you would do a tour, do about 25-30 shows, then choose your location where you'd want to shoot your special, and then go film it there. So that's how we would do a stand-up.
If you had to kind of go back to when you started this whole thing off, right? Started just kind of exploring being an entertainer, rather, if I were to put everything under one roof. Are there things that you would want you would give out as advice, saying, okay, do this, don't do that? Well, I mean, if you, and this also kind of goes for anybody who wants to be a creator today, who wants to act, but also might think he might enjoy comedy, might want to create. So, what would your other pointers be to young you? And I'm not saying you're old now. I'm just saying young you. And
I am old now.
We're all old.
You're 33. Where did the time go?
You're 33. I'm going to be 38 next week. So.
Where did the time go, bro? In terms of advice, I think first and foremost, I think people really need to know why they are doing what they're doing, because pretty much everybody I know at some point of time has wanted to be an actor. That's the charm of that field, so to speak, right? Because you love watching a action kar raha hai, romance kar raha hai, dance kar raha hai, wears good clothes, so popular. This to want to do it is obviously very high. But if you genuinely want to act because you like performing, because there's a certain amount of fun you just have being on set. Like I don't care if that doesn't get me an award or the recognition. Of course, secretly you want the recognition, but when you enjoy doing it, right, you just do it so much better. And there is I don't know how to phrase it, but the disappointment is way lesser, because as actors you have to be just prepared to be said no to pretty much every time you go in. True. Right? Because that's literally what happened to me. So many rejections. But you need to know that, okay, if that is happening, I have something either to fall back on or something that will help me become better at that. So I would, in fact, if I had to give advice to my younger self, I'd ask myself to do comedy a lot earlier than I did. Because I think it's a bigger part of who I am than being an actor is. So probably like started comedy a little bit earlier. Other than that, like, no, I'm pretty happy with the way my life has turned out. You know what I mean? Like, with all the rejections, with the no success, with the slumps, with the backlash or whatever it is, with all the bad points, I think I am where I am and happy where I am is because of all of those things.
Yeah.
And if I tell my younger self, hey, that shouldn't happen, then wo maja hi nikal jayega.
Correct.
So, yeah. But for the new guys, like, just do it, because I think anybody starting right now, you have endless opportunities, man.
Yeah.
Instagram, I saw some kid, 16-year-old kid, who has 3 times the followers I do. You know what he does? It's so funny and random, but I loved it. So he takes interviews of actresses. He dresses up like them.
Yeah.
In a very like homemade style.
Yeah.
Right? And he literally repeats their dialogue and their expressions as they're doing it. And it was hilarious. And this guy's 16. He's 16. Who would have thought? Did you think at 16 you could have 400k followers on Instagram?
Yeah.
I've been ghassoing my ass for
I didn't know what
years.
There was no Instagram when I was 16, man. Don't
exactly. So that's the thing. And the opportunities that kids have right now is insane. I don't want to sound like an old uncle. It's not like we didn't have opportunities, but right now is the time where it doesn't matter where you're from. Are you from a big town or a small village or India or Pakistan or Bangladesh or wherever the hell you're from, you can make it in your own way. Because it's become, and I think COVID has just made it like even platform, right?
Yeah.
Even if Shah Rukh has to perform, he has to use Zoom. And even if I have to perform, I have to use Zoom, right? So chalo, you are on same level. You know what I mean? Like, so
someone said the other day, this is the generation that has grown up with tools to create, whereas we need tools to consume. They are the first generation who have tools to create from the beginning.
Correct.
Which is so true.
Correct. Yeah, man. I mean, you can make a full-fledged, like you have a character. You can make shows even just shooting on your phone. The phones have become so good. You have in-app editing options. It's just like people are saying better stories in 15-second TikToks and Reels than they are in 3-hour movies. Right? And who is this person? Random person. Random girl somewhere, random guy somewhere. You have no idea, but they're killing it. So I think it's an amazing time, and you can literally be whatever you want.
That's true.
You know, so yeah, best of luck to everybody who's going to take this advice seriously and be like, Mummy, मैं कल से videos बना रहा हूँ. वरुण ने बोला.
दोनों वरुण ने साथ में यही बोला. Yeah, towards the end of every episode, I do this segment called Humans of Advertising, right?
Okay.
It started off as me asking a specific set of questions. It has over time become very random, and I always try to see where it goes. What are you a consumer of that people would assume would be surprised to know that you actually are a consumer of? Like, you can be obsessed with, you can be a huge consumer, but what is it that people are like, really? That's what you obsess over or consume?
But okay, I mean, I think some people know it because I talk about it quite a bit, whether it's my friend circle or on the podcast or wherever. Dude, I am obsessed with like space and astronomy and stuff. I might not know the quantum physics of something, But it's something that I am pretty much a very heavy consumer of. Like, that's my good night time. While sleeping, there'll be some documentary I start watching. I follow a whole bunch of like science channels and astronomy channels, and read up a lot on it, watch a lot of videos. So that's something secretly that I want. Like, I keep making a joke that my dying wish is not to be burnt or whatever. I just put me in a space shuttle, throw me up. Like, I'm going to die. I literally just want to see the Earth from out there in the space. So definitely that. And a lot of people are surprised because I can't give you the science of everything. Okay, but I can tell you a lot of stuff about it. I have a conversation about it, and that's something that not many people maybe know about. As in if they're not my friends.
Or what can you put together in an instant?
Like food-wise?
Anything.
Put together in an instant.
It's an open-ended question.
Oh, I don't know what I'm allowed to say. Because the one thing I can put together in an instant is something I can't mention. But that I am really fast.
Okay, super. Whoever has got it has got it. Anything that you watched or read or just generally listened to which you'd recommend in recent times?
In recent times, I think there is this show called Connected right now. It just came out.
I saw episode 1.
It's insane. Okay, because again, it's pop science is, I think, like this new genre that I'm obsessed with. Right? It's scientific facts, but
science fun. And the problem with science throughout your school, and I did engineering, it was that they all made science so boring. This makes science
boring. So much fun. Like, now that I think about it, imagine, Varun, your daughter, when she grows up, she has access to these kind of shows. She will learn 10x just watching this, consuming it, than we ever did through our Bal Bharti textbook or whatever those textbooks were, right?
I watch more science content now than I ever cared, and I studied science. I used to hate it.
But that's definitely a show in the recent past that I've watched that I've really liked. Other than that, I mean, pretty much. What is the other show that I was watching recently? I mean, I don't have. You want me to mention like
Netflix shows?
One is enough, right? Yeah. So Connected, I think I would recommend for now.
And I know we haven't spoken about that space at all, and that's fine because this show is open-ended that way. But why will advertising not die?
Man, because it's fun. I think it's fun. It's no matter how annoying it is, and it comes in the middle of an interesting part in your YouTube video, and then a 5-second ad comes. I love ads. I've loved always watching ads. I love the process of creating, and just because people, I think subconsciously they need it.
Yeah.
I think they need it. So our consumerism is never going to end. So till your consumerism doesn't end, advertising is never going to be gone. It'll metamorphosize into some form, right? Like what started as traditional advertising on TV became like now anything is advertising. Literally, it's a billboard, it's a car. Inside that bus, you have that out of home wala thing. Pretty much. Now your phone's listening to you. So like we talk about a Walkman, I'm saying.
Walkman. Why are you talking? Who's having Walkman ads right now?
I don't know. I said Walkman. I was still stuck in the 90s. No, I meant like you talk about an iPhone and then poop, suddenly on Instagram, your next ad is an iPhone. So I don't think we're ever going to escape this cycle. So
thanks a ton, man. This has been fun.
Hey, thank you, man. This was definitely a lot of fun. I'm sorry again if I just continue to blabber, but I love talking.
The whole point of a podcast is you can talk as much as you want.
Yeah, good. So it's good. And I'm glad that my internet didn't stop and the sound and all was clear. That was my main concern. Okay, super. No, and thank you for having me, man. Actually, I've been following a whole bunch of shit and I'm like, yaar, kabhi karunga, main kabhi karunga, yaar. I also, maybe I'll call him, I'll give him an idea for a topic and let's see then. So thank you for asking me. And this was a lot of fun. And best of luck and continue to kill it. Now, anyway, that you're one of the top trending podcasts there. So continue that, man.
I hope you enjoyed that show. So it's been a really fun week on the network. Please do definitely check out all the regular shows that you do. But in addition, let me give you a few recommendations. On Agla Station Adulthood, Ritasha and Ayushi talk siblings. Really fun episode. I think you'll enjoy that. Nishad Pai Vaidya is on Cyrus and they discuss cricket and a lot of different things around cricket. I think you'll enjoy that as well. Old friend Parmesh Shahani, he was on Absolutely Right. Definitely do check that out. Tamal Mills was on Edges and Sledges, another episode which I've heard really good things about. I haven't heard it yet. I need to listen to that soon. And guys, Uncle Please Sit, definitely listen to that. They've been killing it. This week they have Abby Phillips, he's a doctor talking about medical misinformation. Last week, Paramita Vora was talking about sex education and who needs it. They've been really killing it. Definitely do check that out. And with that, hope to see you again next week.
Sachin Tendulkar, Virat Kohli, Don Bradman, and now Cyrus Brocha. Okay, probably not in the right company. I mean, Don Bradman is Australian. But it's called Cyrus Says, a wonderful show about everything. Find the show on the IVM Podcast app, ivmpodcast.com, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Namaskar, this is Ashish Vidyarthi. Yes, my friend, these are challenging times, but in these challenging times, we can create something extraordinary. Do take time to listen to my podcast, Begin the Journey, available on the IVM Podcast, website, app, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Remember, we have a great opportunity called life. Cheers.